In our fast-paced world, the past, it seems, has little relevance to our daily lives. And so our historic buildings struggle for survival in the face of urban change. But who we are now and how we live was invented in our past.
We need those familiar places where we can remember what San Jose was and what transpired to get us to where we are today.
Historic buildings retain something, a character that just cannot be recreated in modern architecture.
Although many of the larger historic buildings had been renovated, saving the smaller, older historic buildings were overlooked as San Jose transformed its deteriorated downtown into a world-class destination. The wrecking ball sealed their fate.
The demolition of the Montgomery Hotel became a final straw for the historic preservation community in San Jose. They had long felt that the redevelopment projects in San Jose had neglected to consider and respect our historic resources. Saving this hotel really turned into a passion for them.
Elections for mayor were slated for the coming November. The preservation community recognized they had a unique opportunity to be heard.
Preservation Action Council began by making testimony at public hearings, the Planning Commission, the Landmarks Commission, the City Council. And when all of that failed to achieve our objective, then we decided that we would have to make this issue a public cause.
I learned of the Montgomery Hotel when it was threatened, when the council was trying to decide whether to save it or to go with a proposal that not only expanded the Fairmont Hotel, but eliminated the Montgomery Hotel. I think that it was a big issue for people in my campaign because of the tremendous pace here in Silicon Valley. And I believe that historic buildings are the character lines on a city's face. They help current generations and future generations understand our roots, understand our past.
Even before the technology boom turned San Jose into the capital of Silicon Valley, the area was legendary for its enormous economic opportunities. Back in the early 1900s, San Jose was growing as a rich agricultural center.
After the train came in 1869, when the Transcontinental Railroad was completed, we had a big surge of population, and San Jose was the regional service center for those East Coast folks coming into the valley. And so you had banks and all sorts of businesses that provided services.
T.S. Montgomery was the primary developer of downtown San Jose. He saw the advantages of developing in this area. He purchased large tracts of land, and he encouraged other people to invest money as well.
They say his name was synonymous with success. Whatever he did, he succeeded at.
T.S. Montgomery built his hotel in 1911, immediately after the 1906 earthquake. It was designed by William Bender, a prominent local architect at the time, and it is the oldest surviving building in South First Street.
Well, the Montgomery Hotel was the first modern hotel in San Jose when it opened. It was built of concrete and steel, which was a fairly new invention at that time.
You had semi-private or private baths.
It included fans and blowers, which were the predecessors to air conditioning as we know it. Each room had a telephone, which was a unique invention.
You had elevators, heat, all these things that we take absolutely for granted.
They had their own bus, which took people back and forth to the train station.
And so it was a tourist hotel, a businessman's hotel. About 1917, they built what they called the Montgomery Annex, and the whole main floor of it was a ballroom.
And it was just a beautiful rendition of Greek architectural style. We could almost envision couples swirling on the dance floor. I mean, it was a very, very beautiful part of the hotel.
The Montgomery Hotel thrived through the 30s, 40s, and 50s when downtown was in its heyday. It was in the 60s as the downtown began to decline that its use changed to a lower class hotel. It remained in a very dilapidated state as downtown San Jose began revitalizing around it in the 80s.
The successful revitalization efforts in the 1980s and the 1990s created a demand for more hotel rooms to accommodate the rush of visitors, and hotel occupancy soared to near 100% levels. The Fairmont Hotel, sitting next to the now vacant Montgomery, wanted to expand to meet the need.
Somebody needed to step forward and build a hotel that can accommodate the larger conventions as well as the general market. I think we'll lose a lot of conventions if we don't have this type of facility. And we have about 535 rooms here, and that just doesn't quite do it. By doing an addition to the Fairmont, we're getting up close to that 800-900 room level, and it'll be the most dominant convention center hotel this side of San Francisco. When we decided that it might be good to expand, we asked if there was a site available, and that was the only place we could do it.
In mid-1998, the San Jose City Council, faced with a decision about the city's future and weighing the pros and cons of expanding the Fairmont versus saving the Montgomery, voted to proceed with the Fairmont expansion.
This was a very difficult decision for the City Council. The Montgomery had been sitting vacant for years. On the other hand, we have the Fairmont Hotel with pressure to grow, sitting landlocked.
Although design was proceeding on the Fairmont expansion, the Montgomery had not yet been demolished. The election of a new mayor and city council in November 1998 offered renewed hope that the hotel could be saved.
We think the Preservation Action Council was able to make this issue enough of a public cause that mayoral candidates were actually making promises to help address the problem. Our role was really to keep it standing until the new administration could come into office and then deliver on the campaign promise that he had made.
The first steps I took first was to talk with my colleagues on the City Council to help them understand that I really wanted to save the Montgomery Hotel, that I thought it was in the interest of the city.
When the mayor took office, he came up with a compromise solution that none of us could have anticipated.
I talked with the developer about getting their cooperation with this because it would mean some delay, a great deal of understanding on their part.
He wanted us to find a way to try and have a win-win. Someone on our staff or on the architect staff came with the idea of moving it. So I went to the internet. I was shocked to find that they moved lighthouses and theaters and a lot of other things. I wasn't sure that the mayor would be interested in it, and just the opposite. He thought that was a possible solution.
The mayor and the city council decided that moving the hotel was the only solution. The San Jose Redevelopment Agency, the hotel's current owner, had purchased the hotel and most of the surrounding land in that city block for future development. Now the agency was tasked with coordinating the Montgomery's move to its new home.
Accomplishing these kinds of projects is very time-consuming and in most cases very costly. The very nature of the building makes it that way. But I have always believed in all the projects that I've been involved with in terms of saving historic buildings, that in the long run, the benefit far outweighs the cost.
The Redevelopment Agency Board allocated $12.7 million to save the hotel. The project was very complex, requiring demolition and remediation effort, off-site improvements, architectural engineering, seismic retrofit, a new protective roof, paint, and the cost of the move itself.
A team was formed under the leadership and direction of the mayor's office, and it was comprised of Preservation Action Council representatives, a non-quorum group from the Historic Landmarks Commission, the Redevelopment Agency project manager and several staff members, planning department staff, and representatives of Wolff DiNapoli, guided by the historic preservation architect from Architectural Resources Group. Never had this group of people sat around a table together and made decisions to guide a redevelopment project.
This team of experts set out to do the impossible. Move 10 million pounds of concrete and steel, while protecting the Montgomery's National Historic Register status.
Architectural Resources was originally hired to determine what those effects of the move were going to be on the historic fabric of the building. We were hired to go in and identify the historic material that was still extant within the hotel, and then also to record it either photographically or through measured drawings and documents, and also to salvage as much of the historic material as we could so that we could reuse it in the reconstruction. The major challenge that we had was to just do our job in the time frame that we had available before the demo contractors moved in behind us. The hotel had been significantly altered on the interior as well as the exterior. The lower floor had been drastically remodeled, and there were modern additions and alterations that was covering up much of the historic material.
There were wonderful things that were uncovered in the course of archiving this hotel, looking at its history, looking at what things needed to be saved. We found the wonderful mosaic terrazzo floor in the lobby level, and a beautiful tile mosaic with the name Montgomery at the entrance to the hotel, all of which had been covered with a vinyl tile of a 70s redo of this building.
The salvaging of the mosaic floors was probably the biggest effort that we made in terms of trying to remove historic material so that it could be reused later on. It was a process of saw cutting the mosaic floors into tiny little squares and then chiseling them in from the side so that we could pop them up and then store them into crates.
The concept for the interior design of the hotel from 1911 on was very classic. Columns, capitals, the garlands, the Grecian urns, the Greek key design. The design elements are really timeless.
This is a Callum capital from the 1911 dining room, original dining room, showing some of the original colors of the original dining room. It was hidden up among the suspended ceilings that were hiding it for many years.
There's a wonderful half barrel ceiling along the main entry from the first street back to what was then the registration desk. There have been some stencils in other parts of the building, in a bar, restaurant area that were beautiful.
The roofing hadn't been maintained for years, and so there was a significant amount of water damage that was percolating down through the building and damaging some of the plaster materials that were in the inside.
Stabilizing and salvaging the deteriorated architectural features were just a few of the team's many challenges. The greatest uncertainty was yet to be faced. Would the hotel survive the move?
There can be any number of possibilities for damage. It was expressed by the Landmarks Commission in part as well. Physically getting it, the 180 feet to its new site, a lot can happen there.
I'm concerned about the fragility of the structure. It was built in 1911. The concrete is very weak. I'm afraid we might see some cracking or some fragile pieces of the building damaged during the move.
The one thing you got to realize about concrete is it's not like steel or wood or something like that deflects a lot before it breaks. Concrete just breaks.
After the architectural preservation work was completed, the contractors began preparing the building for the move. The first floor had to be gutted to make room for the enormous moving equipment, and the entire site had to be carefully prepared.
Our geotechnical engineer required that we excavate and investigate what was under the ground so that we could prepare the soil between the buildings for the building to move, because it's quite a heavy building.
I think there's just about every challenge I could have met on this project, including water lines, gas lines, electric that's not supposed to be there, hazardous material on the site and in the site and below the site. The mat slab itself was excavated 5 feet below grade, and then the mat slab is 2.5 feet thick. And it's reinforced concrete with number 7 bars and number 9 bars, which are quite large, over 1-inch rebar, and 1,500 yards of concrete to hold the building in place.
The schedule is particularly tight on this project because we have a requirement that the building be off the site by a certain deadline.
Preparation activity accelerates as the move day fast approaches. Concerns about the schedule grow with the knowledge that Biggie, the firm hired to move the hotel, has a firm commitment to leave for another job on the Alaskan slopes.
The first thing we did was cut holes in the first floor. One of the most unusual things was dealing with the problem of the basement. We've got to support the trailers. We originally approached it by putting scaffolding in there, and through the engineering process, we opted to go with filling the basement with dirt, which was done basically with a conveyor system, using backhoe packers to get it in. Then we put the trailers in. The yellow trailers are computer controlled. Everything you see under there is hydraulic state of the art. They're self-propelled hydraulically through drive motors in the wheels. We take all those jacks and hook them together so that we form 3 pools of oil to ride on as it moves. And that's what keeps the loads evenly distributed, both on the ground and to the building. We've got to propel it off this basement up a 1% grade and into place. Now, we've never done it exactly this way before. The biggest problem would be deformation or the ground giving out from underneath us. And we know how to deal with it, but it all takes work. This thing's been engineered probably twice over, but the one thing you've got to realize is that it is an old building. We think we know what's there, but you're never 100% sure. So the moment of truth is when you actually pick this thing off the crib. If you don't come off your points even, if you leave one of your points on the blocking and bring the other one up, you could be racking the building. And you could really introduce some forces into the building that aren't supposed to be there.
The time arrives to cut the columns. Concern is running high, since any miscalculation could be disastrous for the building in its precarious state.
We took 80% of the weight on the hydraulics, and we put 20% of it on blocking underneath the frame of the trailer. Then proceeded to cut the columns out from under it. Now it's resting on that affair. And today is the first time we've actually come up and held the whole thing on the hydraulics.
The entire team's diligence pays off. When the columns are cut, the hotel rests completely and safely on the trailers, while the hydraulics hold the full weight of the building. Now, the hotel is ready for its historic move.
Today, we're making history by saving history. Today's move will set a world's record as the heaviest building ever moved on wheels. But this is about more than breaking records. It's about not breaking the links to our past. Through the hard work of many, today's move sends a clear message. San Jose looks to our future, but we will protect our past. Drivers, start your engines! Let them roll.
Okay, get everybody in their positions. Do a radio check. Okay, we're ready to come ahead. Here we go. Bring the motors up to 1500. Pretty close to where we gotta be now. We're there.
Way to go, Chief, leader. You did good.
Thank you.
Are you ready to go home?
No, we got a lot of work.
The Montgomery, once our grand hotel, then forgotten. Now, ready to be reborn as a reminder of who we were in the city of the future.